Do you have Do you have a sneaking suspicion that you aren't living your best life? Do you have dreams that are sitting on the back burner waiting for when you have time and energy? So many of us are living in fear. We are unable to claim the lives that we want for ourselves because we've got obligations and responsibilities swimming all around us. There are so many opportunities to live into your best life and to grow and expand and move beyond your fear if only you have an opportunity to take a close look at it. Why wait for someone else to save you when you can join me, Doc Jana, in learning to become your own superhero? If courage is a superpower, then fear is the gateway to your superpower. Fear is the number one thing that blocks us from accessing our full selves. If you have one or more historically oppressed identities, the effects of fear are compounded. I am personally affected by intersectionality, meaning that by being Black, non-binary, invisibly disabled, among others, the adverse effects of racism, ableism, and gender bias contribute to my experiences and interpretations of the world. This manifests as what I fear and who fears me. What exactly is fear? Fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something or someone is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. We perceive and create all kinds of obstacles in our minds, some real and some imagined. Those fears prevent us from being fully who we are by limiting our actions and expressions. When you consider racism, for example, it is rooted in the fear that one group of people is dangerous or a threat to another, thereby justifying falsely the need to oppress or control the problematic group. Fear fuels all kinds of negative behavior, and it limits the potential of individuals and groups. Need proof that fear is blocking your greatness? Take a moment to reflect on these questions. What choices would you make now if you knew you were unstoppable and would not be judged harshly? What decisions would you have made in the past if you knew everything would turn out great and you would come to no harm at all? Most of us harbor dreams and wishes for the life we want to live, or worse, used to want. The ultimate effect of fear is that it prevents us from wholeheartedly pursuing our dreams and being who we really are. We abandon our dreams, and by extension, ourselves, all because of fear. What if I told you it wasn't too late? The world is full of examples of people who take hold of their lives and nurture the courage to go after what they want, who they want to be, and who they are. My grandmother was a kindergarten teacher who never finished college. The grandchild of formerly enslaved Africans, she taught school her entire career. She loved school and always longed for a higher education for herself. But she had 3 kids to raise and not a lot of money to live, much less go to college. She was a pastor's wife and then sadly a widow. There was no way she could put herself and her kids through school. Plus, what would people think? Well, my grandmother overcame her fears and concerns. She got her college degree at age 65. She waited until her kids were grown and finally chased down her lifelong dream. Regardless of where you are in your life's journey and what identities define you, you still have time. I'm excited to show you how to disarm and neutralize your fear in the next video. Fear is not entirely abstract. It shows up as sensation in the body and can ultimately erupt as spoken words, actions, intrusive thoughts, or behaviors that do not advance our goals. Let's start with a quick exercise. Answer the following questions. How do you know when you're feeling afraid? What does fear feel like in your body? Where do you feel sensation when fearful images and thoughts arise in your mind? You may have actually brought the fear to the surface just by thinking about it for this exercise. That's completely normal. In fact, we can use that energy to practice a mindful disruption of fearful sensations. Learning to locate fear in the body helps us connect more consciously to what is happening within us on a subconscious level. Unfortunately, we sometimes move in fear and don't realize we have acted on a fearful impulse until it's too late. Conversely, misplaced fear can also stifle our actions and prevent us from acting in our own best interest. It's kind of embarrassing to admit that in addition to being really nervous in large groups of people, my fear and anxiety causes a nervous response in the form of profuse sweating in my armpits. Yeah, it's a little more than uncomfortable. I know others who suffer the same condition, and many of them just avoid crowded spaces as much as possible. I could do that, but as an author, entrepreneur, friend, and public speaker, it is often in my best interest and that of the communities I cherish and support to attend large gatherings. I'm not always precisely certain of what I'm even afraid of in these social settings, but I am acutely aware of the fact that I am afraid. Perhaps I'm afraid of looking stupid. Maybe I'm afraid of people judging me or being awkward. It could even be a feedback loop of being nervous, that I will seem nervous and people will notice that I'm nervous, or worse, see me sweating like I just ran a marathon. Sometimes I worry that I don't know someone's name that I should, and I don't want them to feel like they aren't memorable. I've just stopped trying to pinpoint the exact fear in each scenario. Instead, I focus on the fact that I am afraid and I make a different choice. When my sweaty pits start streaming, or if I catch the feeling before my body reacts, I increase my awareness of the situation. I focus intently on the person or the people in front of me, and I deny my wild mind the pleasure of self-analysis. I find that getting in my head about my own fear only makes everything worse and more intense. When I get present with my surroundings and what's happening outside of my body, the internal sensations subside. And I usually find a fun, useful, or stimulating anchor out in the real world that distracts me from my anxiety. One effective way to refocus your thoughts and energy is with a breathing activity. Mindful breathing is a way to hack your nervous system when it's sending you distress signals. Body awareness helps you catch the distress signals early before they influence unwanted behaviors. Let's try a breath control exercise. Sit with your back comfortably upright if possible. If you can close your eyes, that's great. Connect to your breath and just observe your own breathing pattern. When you're ready, take a deep breath and release it with an audible sigh. Good. On your next inhale, let's count to 4. Hold your breath at the top for another 4 count. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Keep going at a slow pace that's comfortable for you. That's great. This technique is called box breathing, and it can help regulate your nervous system. Fear is often based on things we feel we cannot control. The nice thing about this disruption technique is that you can always control and observe your breath. It's an anchor that is always available to distract you or redirect you away from fear and back towards mindful awareness. When you know how fear feels in your body, you can use your breath to calm and redirect your focus so you can accomplish your goals. If you are ready to reclaim your fear and activate your superpowers, join me in the next video. Fear can wreak maximum havoc if we don't allow ourselves to face it head on. Sometimes we avoid naming our fear or looking at it precisely because it's so scary. The magnitude of courage we can cultivate is in direct proportion to the perceived amplitude of our fears. Big fear turns into big courage that we can use to take even bigger leaps. Little fear requires less energy to alchemize, but clearing those cobwebs can be great practice for tackling the scary monsters that hold us back. Fear really is like a monster. We frighten ourselves into not looking under the bed or around the corners where the monster might be. The truth is, we need to find the monster so that we can know exactly how to deal with it. In my work as a diversity professional, I have seen countless examples of gender minorities and people from the BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ communities exist uncomfortably in workplaces, surrounded by one or more people who mistreat them. People of any race or identity can feel mistreated at work, but the effect of such behavior on historically underappreciated people stokes a specific type of fear. People from these communities often choose not to speak up out of fear. When you are a member of an oppressed group, speaking up is often punished, either overtly or in subtle, pernicious ways. Over time, people lose touch of what they actually fear, and they just keep silent because they don't feel safe and they don't trust the system to protect them. I advise my clients and friends in such instances to get very clear on what fear is keeping them from defending themselves. I invite you to be brave and write down 1 to 3 fears. No one else has to see this. This is just for you to actively consider what fears might be holding you back and getting in your way. Here are a few that come up frequently. The fears you identified may be on this list. Fear of retaliation. Fear of job loss, fear of losing promotions, fear of being labeled a troublemaker, fear of reinforcing an identity stereotype, angry Black woman, being too emotional, labeled as aggressive, or not a team player. Once you name the specific fear, you can devise a strategy to mitigate adverse outcomes. This is when enlisting the support of allies can be extremely helpful. If it feels truly unsafe to defend yourself at work, try asking a colleague or a trusted supervisor to speak up on your behalf, or join you as backup and moral support when the time comes. To avoid being labeled not a team player, flip the script and emphasize your support for the team and your contributions. Align your team values with the person or the group you need to address before stating your concerns. Leverage the fact that you are a team player to reinforce your need for support in being the best team member you can be. Now your fear becomes the strength behind your rationale. Sometimes leaning into the fear makes you stronger. For example, at the risk of being labeled too emotional, I have to admit that this is a difficult subject for me. Though I've read that such levels of self-awareness and sensitivity are leadership strengths that can help me connect with my colleagues and customers. Once you name the fear, you can work to contextualize it as a strength. You weaken the grip fear has on you when you're willing to challenge its validity. The next step is cultivating courage. I'll see you in the next video where we will refine your new superpower. Your identities represent core aspects of your unique being. While you may share identities with countless others within specific groups, the precise configuration of your identities and experiences are a recipe distinctly your own. Your mix of identities is quite literally your special sauce. The world often devalues our identities, particularly the more marginalized ones. Just because society and others don't appreciate who we are and what we've been through does not mean we must do the same. We can transform some of our most underappreciated identities into our greatest strengths. As a non-binary person of color, there are countless people who think less of me, people who deem me incapable and less than, sight unseen. But I have a secret. My membership in communities of color and LGBTQIA+ spaces offers me strength unparalleled. I am the offspring and the culmination of legacies of strength, endurance, and fortitude. What communities can you draw strength from? My ancestors and the queer folks who preceded me forged the foundation upon which I stand. Whenever I'm faced with a seemingly insurmountable challenge, I remember those who came before me and survived, or endured, even worse odds than my own. That does not mean that we must martyr ourselves, but we should remember that we are not alone in our fear, suffering, or circumstances. Someone, somewhere, has navigated something similar. As a domestic abuse survivor, leaving my situation was the hardest plan I ever had to execute. I was completely mortified. Failure likely would have meant death at the hands of the person who threatened me. I survived my exit because I tapped into the resources available through my local YWCA. They assured me that everything I was experiencing was a predictable pattern of abuse. They helped me devise a strategy to get out of my home safely. Being a member of the community of survivors gave me the strength I needed to escape my circumstances. I didn't feel that I had it inside me, so I found reinforcement from the outside. Had I not stopped to own the reality that I was, in fact, a domestic violence survivor, I would not have sought the wisdom of the community equipped to help me. For years, I made excuses, and I didn't see myself as a victim or my partner as an abuser. Owning those identities saved my life. Let's take a moment to reflect on who you are. Make a list of your personal identities. They can include, but not necessarily be limited to, race, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, religion, ability, etc. Next to each identity, write down an example of how that identity has shaped you or made you stronger. Identify one or more community groups associated with each identity that you are a member of or could become a member of. Business resource groups, spiritual groups, meetup groups, LinkedIn groups, neighborhood associations, etc. There are so many to choose from. I shared a very personal, dramatic example of how identity can become a strength. Yours may be more or less emotional, but no less significant. Your identities, no matter how seemingly unremarkable, are in fact critical. Embracing who you are more fully can be your salvation on so many levels. I hope you're enjoying getting to know yourself more deeply. I know I am. Our next session delves deeper into the particularities of marginalized identities. I'll see you there. No one enjoys being taken for granted or feeling insignificant. Unfortunately, it's human nature for some people to push others down to make themselves feel superior. Throughout humanity, every culture has created some kind of hierarchy that leaves a portion of the population behind. There's always a lower strata that gets pushed to the margins of society. All over the world, we rank people's value by religion, socioeconomic class, color, nationality, tribal affiliation, occupation, physical and mental ability, age, you name it. Humans have a way of lifting people up and putting people down for the most arbitrary reasons. Those reasons tend to matter less to each of us as individuals until we are personally affected. Learning to understand and empathize with the plight of others takes courage. Refusing to shrink when people put you down takes courage. Speaking up for yourself or others who are being mistreated takes even more courage. This is why it's so important to build a support network of people who can relate to or want to relate to your experiences. Even if we cannot identify with marginalization, we often know or love someone who can. Take a moment now. Refer back to your identities list from the previous video. Are any of your identities historically marginalized? Or is there anyone close to you who you think may have felt marginalized due to their identity? Whether we can relate to the circumstances of others or not, we need to learn empathy for and take seriously the experiences of others. Considering the sheer number of my equity-seeking identities and my career in diversity, you would think by age 40 I would have developed a level of comfort that would preclude me from being fearful about being out. Nonetheless, when I embraced the non-binary label, I didn't know how to approach the change. I had spent months thinking about what non-binary meant to me and why I chose the label. It was finally time for me to come out at work for my own comfort, healing, and sanity. I had to share my changing identity to live authentically as myself, even at work. Even though I owned the company and was the CEO, I wanted feedback about my process. I chose not to force the change abruptly, despite that being more appropriate for many people. Transitions sometimes need to be swift and thorough for people to take them seriously. When that happens around you, be a brave ally and work hard to integrate new names and pronouns as quickly as you can. As for me, I checked with my staff and asked how they would feel if their CEO not only used they/them pronouns, but also added them to signatures, business cards, and websites. I fully expected some apprehension, as this was way back in 2017, when non-binary wasn't nearly as common an out identity as it is now. Well, I underestimated my team. They were thrilled for me, fully embraced my coming out, and immediately pointed out all the ways that sharing their own cisgender pronouns would serve them and communications in general. Someone who was assigned male at birth had a gender-neutral name, but people assumed he was a woman via email. He was excited to add he/him to his signature, both as an ally and to avoid future misgendering. Another multi-ethnic teammate had a foreign name, and no one knew their gender at all. They also wanted to add pronouns to avoid confusion, and eventually came out as non-binary several years later. I shared my non-binary coming out story to point out that status, age, expertise, and experience are irrelevant in the face of fear. We all come up against fear at different life stages. None of us are immune to fear, but we can all make the choice to advocate for our needs and hope for the best. Even as CEO, I workshopped my professional coming out with friends, family, and mentors. If you feel unsafe advocating for yourself, consider reaching out to allies who can help share the burden and advise you along the way. Marginalized identities can be associated with outsized fear because they live at the very heart of who we are. But we cannot access the superpowers associated with those identities until we embrace them and allow ourselves to live out loud as soon as it feels safe to do so. When we do decide to speak up, we may face both internal and external conflict. Join me in the next video as we learn how to combat criticism. How many times have you had a dream, wish, or idea only to have it followed by a long list of worst-case scenarios and reasons why you can't do something, won't accomplish something, or aren't worthy to have something or someone? I know that my inner critic can be every bit as unforgiving as any naysayer I've ever encountered. Criticism is one of the scariest things we can face. The voices around us break us down with negativity, crush our hope, and stifle our creativity. Criticism can be even worse when it originates inside your own mind. I'm going to share some strategies for how to handle criticism, but first I want you to write down one critical thing you heard or thought recently about yourself. Next, as we go through the various strategies, take a few notes and we'll revisit our critical statement later. So, what do you do about criticism? The best lessons I learned about external criticism came from my time at the VCU School of the Arts. Critique of students' work was part of the course content and learning experience. As artists, we bring forth manifestations of our souls through our artwork. When you criticize our work, it feels like a personal attack to the untrained recipient of critique. That's precisely why art schools train students of all disciplines to learn to receive criticism with grace. And that is how I approach criticism from the outside. I recognize that everyone has opinions, and that by and large, those opinions are none of my business, have no bearing on my value as a person, may or may not reflect any need for changes on my part, and are only as meaningful as I choose to make them. Criticism can be great if it helps you refine and improve yourself or your offerings in the world. This is especially true when the message is delivered with kindness and good intent. Criticism is hardest to navigate when it's delivered without tact and when you can feel that the person is enjoying tearing you down. But take heart. The potential positive outcome remains true even if someone is unkind in their delivery. Now, you may be thinking, what if the critic is me? Self-criticism, in my opinion, is a form of self-harm. What you think, believe, and say, even to yourself, especially to yourself, creates a template for your mind-body's primal operating system. Feed it good words, wishes, hope, and kindness, and your life will begin to reflect your best and highest good. If you allow yourself to indulge in self-criticism, you are programming your mind and your life to create whatever you focus on. So redirect negative thoughts as quickly as possible. What you focus on, you create. This is why it's important not to let the unkind words and opinions of others influence your mental activity. If you play their criticism on repeat in your mind, those thoughts take hold and distort your reality into something less hopeful and less joyful. Try not to give anyone that power over you. They can say mean things, but they cannot force you to think about it and to keep replaying it. This is a great time to consider mental health awareness. I live with depression and anxiety. I used to suffer with thoughts of self-harm. If you struggle with depression, intrusive thoughts, or thoughts of injuring yourself or others, please call an appropriate helpline. Don't be afraid to seek help through your guidance counselors, therapists, employee assistance program, or trusted family and friends. If anyone reacts badly to your seeking help, that is their problem. It is brave, appropriate, and awesome to get the support you need. That's why mental health challenges are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act and the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Mental illness is not curable, only manageable. So it's a protected condition, and you shouldn't be afraid to claim it. Here's a window into my neurodiverse brain and how I redirect critical thoughts. When I was offered the opportunity to build this course for LinkedIn, my little fear monster told me all the reasons why I should be afraid. I have a team that writes curricula now. I don't write courses anymore. What if it's the worst course ever? What if no one takes it or likes the course and I waste everyone's time and embarrass myself and my whole team? I flipped those criticisms into positives. My team writes courses based on the model I built when I founded the company. What a great opportunity to resurrect a skill after all that I've learned since I wrote my last course. What if thousands of people take it and love the course? What if it changes people's lives and people come flocking to my business for more support? Now that we've worked through one of my examples, let's go back to yours. Revisit the critical statement you wrote earlier and answer the following questions. Is this criticism internal or external? Is the criticism objective fact or opinion? Can I learn something useful from the objective fact or opinion? Can I improve the idea in a way that feels good to me? Am I in loving or respectful relationship with the critic? Do I want to be in a relationship with the critic? If it's internal, am I borrowing trouble from tomorrow? Am I projecting the fears of others? Am I self-sabotaging? Can I invert this fear into hope through aspirational narrative? Criticism can be like the grain of sand in an oyster, a mild irritant that we change into a pearl. Whether the criticism is internal or external, you can decide what to do with it and how it ultimately influences your life and work. Reflecting on the criticism and determining how to discard or transmute it increases your personal power and control. Now that you're getting a handle on how to manage criticism, let's move to the next ingredient for courage, understanding your why. I'll see you there. How many of us are going through the motions of our daily lives, performing tasks and duties without ever really questioning why? People sometimes refer to life as the rat race. People scurry around, racing from one place to the next, trying to get their proverbial cheese and survive another day. As people become increasingly dissatisfied with the status quo, they begin to question what actually drives them. At least I hope they do. Many of us were trained in school and at home to do as we are told and to follow a path that others decided was acceptable for us. Some folks go willingly. Some make peace with their path, and others resist the whole way. Which is your story? Did you choose your path? Did someone choose it for you? A combination of both, perhaps? Well, I have great news. Today, you get to take control and decide for yourself. Let's get to the root of why you do what you do and see if that opens up space for you to rewrite your story. My big aha moment happened after I had my first two children. They were 2 and 3 years old, and I felt they were grounded in love, a sense of self, and a cosmic context. They knew that they didn't create themselves and that Earth wasn't all there is. I looked at what felt like my life's 2 crowning achievements and realized the only thing left that I needed them to know is that they could realize any dream they set their minds to. Family and children had been my primary focus, but I was compelled to re-examine my own why, and I realized that I had long abandoned my desire to be an artist. In a moment, I will ask you to do another journal reflection. And here's how the same exercise went for me 23 years ago. I started with a question. Why did I want to be an artist? To live freely and express the vibrations of my soul. Why did I want to live freely and express my soul? Because I hated the feeling of being trapped and felt like there was so much inside of me that wanted to be out that would benefit humanity. Why did I hate the feeling of being trapped and want to unlock that within me which might serve humanity? Because I come from enslaved Africans whose freedom and expression was stolen. As the saying goes, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. My joy, artistry, and creativity are all expressions of liberation that I was born to share. All of this lives in me and resonates throughout my work and art. Here's what I did with the new information. My childhood dream was to be a visual and performing artist. So I enrolled in art school as a stay-at-home mom. I took acting classes at the local theaters and enjoyed an incredibly fulfilling early career in the arts. I never have to live with the regret of dreams deferred. And my kids witnessed the victories and the struggles associated with facing my fear of living into my joy. Yeah. Sometimes I was super broke, but my heart was overflowing and I was so happy. My entrepreneurial path was an outcropping of that first reckoning with my own why. I invite you to revisit the list of things you would do if you were guaranteed success. Remember, you wrote about this in the beginning of the course. Ask yourself why you want to pursue the things on that list. Keep asking why until you get to something that resonates at your core. It may take 3 whys. It may take 10. Just keep drilling to the why until you get down to the heart of the matter. This may guide you towards something deeper, a core motivation, a deep truth, or a driving purpose. Only you can determine how it resonates. Now that you have one or more answers to the question why, you are ready to take the next step. Whether you've honed on an essential truth or landed on your core motivation, you now have an anchor that can help you find balance. Your why can ground you when you feel lost and when you're searching for meaning and connection. Look at your distilled answers and see whether they apply or resonate with your current circumstances, fears, or goals. Can you realign anything in your life to honor the truths you've discovered? Knowing that creative expression is central to my core colors everything I do. When my fear tries to stop me from oversharing or taking a creative risk, I remember why I'm here. Connect your why to your goals, mission, and actions, and you will be an unstoppable force. There's something incredibly powerful about someone who knows who they are, what they want, and why they want it. The next step in the journey is to figure out what only you can do. Let's move on and unlock the special sauce in your superpowers. Do you want to know how to become the superhero of your own story? The secret alchemy of superpowers may be in the ability to identify your strengths and combine them in service of your higher goals. However, it's also good to know your weaknesses so you can avoid spending your life focusing on deficiencies. An alarming number of people do exactly that. Focusing on your fear or your weakness is a huge drain of energy. Understanding what you know, what you're good at, and what you are passionate about can help you access your strength when solving any challenge. That indeed is a superpower. I use the head, hands, heart inventory in my coaching and consulting practice. You will get a chance to try it for yourself in just a minute. In the head, hands, heart exercise, I ask people to write down the things they know, the things they are skilled at, and the things that they are passionate about. When people find alignment across all three, it strengthens their resolve and their energetic focus. How often do we sit down and take an inventory of our skills and experience? Here's your chance. Complete the following inventory as thoroughly as you like. Head. List the things you know a lot about, things you've studied, things you understand through experience and research. Examples include accounting, languages, tarot, and culture. Hands. List the skills you have, things you can do with your hands, your body, or yourself. Examples include gardening, healing arts, painting, and music. Heart. List the things that you're passionate about, the things you want to know more about, things that excite and inspire you. Examples include children, animals, astrology, and movies. When there's a strong passion in one area but little knowledge, it opens the opportunity to learn more about that discipline. This is especially helpful for groups and teams. Rather than assume we know everyone's area of expertise, passion, and talent, doing this inventory can uncover new avenues for individuals to expand their roles on a team. It helps us better know ourselves and understand our teammates. This way, we can deploy our individual and collective energy more wisely and with greater confidence. I particularly love how this inventory can support inclusion. The lived experiences of people across differences creates fascinating intersections. When I know a lot about languages and I'm passionate about working with youth, both my lived experiences and my demographic identities influence how my gifts show up and how I use them. Your identities are as much a part of the inventory as your skills and interests. Some people will value your talent differently because of your identities, which is why it's all the more vital that you be very clear and connected to what you bring to the table. So how was that exercise for you? Harder than you expected? Easy? It's a great exercise to revisit. I advise my mentees to do this type of inventory before negotiating salaries and positions. If you can't articulate your unique value proposition, it's easier for people to devalue you and undercut your compensation. No skill or experience is too small, especially if it can be applied to a team, organizational, or creative context that serves the goals on the other side of the negotiation table. You shouldn't have to justify yourself and your passions, but when you can support your pursuits with a firm grasp of your unique magic, you become more compelling. People rarely value you higher than you value yourself, so aim high. Now that you've taken an objective look at your unique value proposition, try combining it with your why. Find the common threads and the resonance between what drives you and what you bring to the table. No one can put you in a box or define you when you have clear insight into your own truth, talent, experience, and identity. One of the things that holds people back is fear of messing up. We cannot activate our superpowers without facing failure. Our next video is all about how to embrace failure. Let's start with a journaling activity. Write down a time that you failed at something or missed an opportunity. Write in as much detail as you want, the situation and how you responded to the failure or loss. What, if anything, did you learn from that situation? What did you learn about yourself? Did the situation change you or anything about the way you approach life? So much of our fear is connected to apprehension about failure or loss. If we learn to embrace failure and expect loss, fear loses its grip. We take back our power every time we accept failure as a normal part of life. I was a college dropout before I finished my degrees. During that time, I got married and had kids. Once my kids were in preschool, I went after more jobs than I could count. At one point, I applied to work at a big tech company that conducted a personality test and said I wasn't a culture fit due to my independent nature. I was devastated, as that was the last of the jobs that I really wanted. The pain of that loss is what finally propelled me into entrepreneurship. I started my own business because I didn't seem to fit in anywhere, and I wanted to create a workplace that would provide the spaciousness I needed as a mother and a free thinker. Had I not failed at securing the jobs I most wanted, I would have never started my own business. Failure can lead to the biggest, bravest breakthroughs. Now that you've heard one of my examples, take a look again at your journal entry. Is there anything you see differently about your own experiences? If we learn to fail fast and get those lessons behind us, we can move forward with greater strength and wisdom. You are allowed to fail. You're invited to fail. Because if you aren't failing at all, you may be playing it too safe to reach your goals. One of my favorite quotes says that success is moving from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. Behind every success is one or more failures. So, know that when you miss the mark, victory is just around the corner. Celebrate the survival, extract the lessons, and keep marching towards your goals. The only real failure is giving up. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll wrap our course in the next video. To recap our journey, we introduced the idea of fear as your superpower by understanding, disarming, and reclaiming it. We cultivated courage by connecting with who you are, your marginalized identities, and learning to combat criticism. Finally, we empowered your purpose by understanding your why, identifying what only you can do, and embracing failure. Take a look at your notes from this course. We've been on a journey that maps key elements of your superpowers. It took courage to engage with this course. Review what you wrote. Feel free to expand your notes and explore different answers and different questions. Your answers and questions will change as you grow and achieve your goals. These activities can help you stay connected to what is important, what is true, and what is really you. And with that, you're ready. It's time to embrace all of you, even the fear, and let it propel you towards the life you really want. Your courage is bigger than your fear. And now you have the tools to tame it. If you enjoyed this experience and you want more content like this, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and sign up for my newsletter at tiffanyjana.com. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, go forth and be courageous.